35 years and in practice.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. As you know, I'm here every Sunday morning from 7 to 8 a.m. live here at Sports Radio 810 WHB. And today, for the first time in 35 years, our show is not just on the radio. It's going to be on video podcast on Facebook and YouTube. And I'm looking forward to doing this show with you today because we're going to have a great show. And I've got a coworker, I guess we'll call her. Danni Wysocki is going to be joining me here in a moment. And if you don't know her, she's incredibly talented. She's been involved in sports forever. She's done thousands of interviews. She lives in the Detroit area. She teaches at the University of Michigan. She's a mom. She understands sports, and she's going to be doing this show with me. We're going to try it today on a trial basis first time, and if this works, we're going to do this once a month for the next 3 months and see how it goes, because I think it's time to get into the video world. I've been here on the radio for 35 years, the last 25 years here at Sports Radio 810 WHB. And if you don't know me, I've been a sports psychologist for 45 years, one of the first trained sports psychologists in the country. And I've worked with everybody. I've worked with the Olympic team back in the 80s with the cycling team. We won 9 medals in 84 in the Olympics. I was KU's first sports psychologist, the first sports psychologist of baseball at the Royals. I worked with all kinds of professional athletes, college athletes, high school athletes, co-wrote a book called Just Let Them Play, guiding parents, coaches, and athletes through youth sports. But I love doing this show because we talk about things that aren't talked about during the rest of the week, about the mental side of sports. So, Danni, thank you for joining me this morning. I'm looking forward to this going on and see what we can do with this.
Thanks, Doc. You're the best hype man. Thank you for that intro. And that you can't see me right now, but I do have to work on my background for the next time that I join you. Maybe get some University of Michigan national basketball champions, a swag in the background. But it's an exciting time for my students and here in Ann Arbor.
Well, I will say this: my wife's son Caleb is a gigantic Michigan fan, and I know when they won the national championship, he was going berserk at his house. So you have many
Go
fans.
Blue.
Well, I'm a Jayhawk fan and a Vanderbilt fan, so I can root other ways for things with them. But you've got all the swag right now with what you guys have done.
And normally, I can't even say with how things have fared lately in college sports. Normally, I can find some common ground with the Big Ten, but I can't even with you down there. So,
well, let's talk. Look, let's get into this today because you and I've talked several times. You've been on the show a couple of times with me. I love your perspective. I love the way you look at things. You're a mom. You've got 2 young daughters. You understand sports. You've been involved with it. You've been at all the levels, the NCAAs, the Olympics, the World Series, the NHL championships. You understand what it's about. Mental health, Danni, okay, is what I get into. And I've talked about the importance of mental health in sports forever. I started, like I said, in 1981. I began my practice. And a little background for those who don't know me. I grew up here in Kansas City, went to Vanderbilt, then I went to grad school in San Diego. My second year out there was a class called sports psychology. And I thought, well, this looks cool. I was a tennis player my whole life, and I choked a lot under pressure. I'm like, well, maybe this will help me. Well, 5 minutes into this class, taught by Dr. Robert Nidifer, I'm like, I found my niche. Went down. The cool thing, Danni, about being in San Diego, my school was 5 minutes from the beach. So I went down to the beach after class. I was in my own class that day, read the book cover to cover called The Inner Athlete, called Dr. Nidifer that night, and I said, this is what I want to do. And we set up the first internship in sports psychology at San Diego State. And after I graduated, where I'd worked with the tennis team and gymnastics team, drove back home, and I stopped at Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center. And we'd set up an interview with the assistant head of sports medicine. And after about 10 minutes with this guy, he said, listen, I appreciate you stopping in. And he said this to me: we don't need any of you PhD types telling us what's wrong with our athletes. And I was like amazed that this is what the guy said. Well, on my drive back to Kansas City, after I took off my remember 3-piece suits, Danny? You remember those things, or those before your time? Took that off, put on my running clothes, drove back. And I was so ticked that this guy said that to me. I'm like, sports, the mental aspect of sports is what it comes down to. I always like to say you can have two athletes who are physically the same, but the one with the stronger mind will come out on top. So on my drive back, I said, okay, I'm not going to let him deter me. 9 months later, in June of 82, I got a call from the Cycling Federation saying, we got your name from sports medicine. We need a sports psychologist. I ended up working with them through 1988, and that began everything. But, you know, the mental aspect is so important, and it's become more prominent now. Let me ask you, as a woman, as someone involved with sports, why do you think that's changed? Why is that important now?
Well, Doc, I think that there has been a big shift, and my students probably haven't noticed the shift because we can champion how our perception and value put in the mental health space has been over the past decade. But there was a big shift, and I think that there has been so many great advocates at the team level. Kevin Love has been a great advocate. In Chicago, we saw Brandon Marshall champion it with his vulnerability and sharing his history. But from the consumer and also industry perspective, we saw that shift first with Michael Phelps, and then again in 2021 with Simone Biles. And these athletes at the Olympic level sharing their stories and their mental health journey. And I think you have to take a look from it from a fan perspective as consumers. Yes, I mentioned Kevin Love. If you're not a fan of a specific team or for a specific player, that's one thing, that's one silo. But we can all get behind, and we all have this national identity when it comes to Olympics. We all have this sense of patriotism. The Olympics is such a tentpole event where it's multicultural, chasm of society, where we do find our identity of it. So not only do you see these Olympic athletes where we are all rooting for, where we're all championing, but also two athletes who are the best at their sport, the best in the world. And to see Michael Phelps and Simone Biles both share their stories, their journeys, I think really charged something in us. When you also have you saw it on the inside within sports with sports psychologists, with mental health coaches, with more resources to the athletes. But those particular superstars having not sharing their stories changed something to us from a societal perspective.
Yeah, and you're right. With Kevin Love, for those who don't know, when he was playing for the Cavaliers, he had an anxiety attack, but nobody knew what it was. And he ended up in the hospital where they find it, they checked him out physically. There's nothing wrong. They ended up taking him to the hospital and realized he had a panic attack. He had anxiety, and he's become an advocate now because of that for mental health. Michael Phelps developed an alcohol problem. And here's the greatest swimmer of all time. And Danni, remember after the first Olympics, I believe it was, he got caught smoking a bong. And it became big news. I don't know if you remember that or not. And I think what happened with Michael Phelps, I've never met him. I know some swimmers. I've worked with swimmers my whole career. I've worked with several gold medalists from the Kansas City area. The Kansas City Blazers swim team that I worked with for 30 years, coached by Peter Malone, who co-wrote my book with me, Just Let Him Play, along with Jeff Montgomery, the Kansas City Royals. So I've been around swimmers my whole career. My younger son, Gregory, swam till he was a senior in college. But the pressure that I think Michael Phelps felt as a teenager, training swimmers train, they do 2-a-days. They're in the water in the morning, they're in the water after school, they're doing weights, they're dry land workouts, they're doing stuff all the time. And I think for him, the pressure probably got to him. He couldn't be a normal teenager, and he wanted to just do that. And then I think consequently, he developed a problem with alcohol, I think, as an escape. And because of the pressures, the expectations on him were so strong. And then we take Simone Biles, as you said, who had the twisties. And I work with gymnasts my whole career since grad school in San Diego. And for those of you who don't understand about gymnastics, when you're running down that runway, hitting that springboard, jumping over that horse, you're flipping around, you could break your neck. In fact, I unfortunately here in Kansas City, we had a gymnast who did at a gym where it's under suspension now because of Safe Sport suspending these coaches because of the abuse that they've done. But that's such a difficult thing to do. And it's scary as heck to flip around in the air like that. Did you ever do that?
Was I ever a gymnast?
Yes.
No. So,
why not? Why didn't you want to go do that? Because
Doc, I can't say, I don't know why the reason. I do find it interesting though, too. My daughter is in gymnastics. She's only 4 though. So before we have those concerns. But now, I mean, you see the support for athletes, for gymnasts, and whether it's their player safety, as you mentioned, and some sports when it comes to springboard or helmet or concussion advocacy, but also the mental health aspect too is so important.
Yeah, gymnastics is a great sport. I don't want people to think I'm dissing it at all, because it's a wonderful sport. But when you get to that level, you're doing things that are very, very difficult, and you've got to be trained physically and mentally. So when it comes to mental health, Danny, mental health is obviously an issue for everybody. It's for all of us. But for athletes, for years, it was looked upon as a sign of weakness if you had to go talk to somebody, if you had to go talk about stress, if you had to talk about anxiety. I know when I worked with the Kansas City Royals in 1990, I was one of the first full-time sports psychologists in baseball. I had my own locker in the locker room. I got to know all these guys very well: George Brett, Bo Jackson, Brett Saberhagen, Tom Gordon. I'm still in touch with a lot of these guys. And I would sit and get to know them. At first they were like, well, who is this guy? We've got a shrink here. But after a little while, because I was there every day, they most of them opened up to me, and we got to become, pretty close. And we talked about stuff. We talked about life and pressures and expectations. Being a professional athlete, being an Olympic athlete, being a collegiate athlete today has a tremendous amount of pressure that comes from a variety of perspectives. And with social media now, I think that throws a whole other wrench into it. Let me get your thoughts on that.
Doc, you said something that I just want to highlight, and it's a testament to you, and it makes a good reporter. It makes a strong media member who they are, is that you said, hey, when I'm there every day, it developed this rapport of trust. And that was the same thing covering teams in locker rooms. And if you wanted to get the interview, myself from the producer side, I had to be there as well too, because when I asked a player an interview, that developing that trust to come on with us post game with the talent who wasn't even there, it had to be that consistency. It had to be that trust. So that's when, you're looking for, whether it's psychology from the mental health side or anything in medical, you want that comfortability, which I think is important. But, you talk about athletes being more empowered to talk about their mental health journeys. I think, again, we go through where we are with media and our relationship with media. I teach all the time about how media is 24/7 now. Media is also fragmented because you have so many different platforms. It started out with just, your broadcast television, with whether you were getting on the worldwide of sports, of ABC, those segments, interviews, that was the chance for the athletes to tell their story. So of course, they weren't going to spend that 2-minute segment talking about maybe their vulnerabilities. But now with social media, now with everyone having a platform, their own brand identity, that they are able to have a place to share and to give that inside look. Both from, not only is it empowering from a humanistic perspective, but also a brand perspective, that fans, consumers, when you follow an athlete on social media, you want those behind the scenes. You also want to share a parasocial relationship with your followers, with your fans. So it's a complete 180 from maybe even when I started within sports media, And we had Twitter, we had Facebook, but still it's only continuing to grow. So that's why you see this empowerment to share where you are in your mental health.
You know, a couple of years ago, and I'm here in Kansas City, you're up in Detroit. I'm obviously a Chiefs fan. I was at the very first Super Bowl ever. I went to the very first Chiefs game ever with my dad. And when the Chiefs beat Buffalo in Buffalo a couple of years ago in the playoffs, Tyler Bass, the Bills kicker, missed, I believe it was a 39-yard field goal in the fourth quarter that would have tied the game. The next day, he got death threats on social media, and he went off all his social media accounts. He eliminated all of them. I don't know if he's back on now. But I'm like thinking, why would somebody get death threats because they missed a kick? And, you know, athletes now are exposed to everything, their personal lives, what they do. You know, with sports gambling now, Danny, the whole pressures that come from that. I've heard stories about professional golfers who miss a putt, get threats online from people because they lost a lot of money. So social media, with its benefits, also has its detriments, right?
Yeah, but I know and this is why I always love our conversations, Doc, because you are an advocate for mental health and for the good of humankind. As a sports media and professor, I'm coming into what can we raise? How can we drive revenue? How can we increase marketability and branding and sponsorship? So, I mean, from my perspective, I'm always going to say, you know, as my students would say, get that bag. So when it comes to NIL, social media, gambling, you know, I want to see where maximizing is. And that's why it's good that there are people like you who are going to advocate for the betterment of society.
Well, I appreciate that comment. Listen, if you'd like to join the conversation, our phone number from anywhere is 913-381-810 here at our studio. Feel free to call and ask a question if you've got one. The reason I do what I do, Danny, and why I think it's so important, the reason I do this show and why I want you to start joining me doing this is because you come from a different perspective, as you just shared. You come from the perspective also from a female perspective. And I want to have that added onto here because I'm coming from a certain angle with my background, but I like having other people's opinions. I've had many people on the show before who don't agree wholeheartedly with me. We talk about it. One time I had a guy call up who was real angry at what I was saying about kids' sports. And by the time we were done with our conversation, he sort of changed his tune around and said, well, maybe you're right. One of my concerns, and after we go to our first break, I want to come back and get into this with you, youth sports. Okay. I'm 71 years old. And when I grew up playing sports, started playing tennis about 8. But when it came to team sports and things like that, didn't really start to about 5th or 6th grade. There weren't teams for 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. You know, that didn't exist back then. And I'm not saying it's bad, but what is bad about it is when you get the adults, the parents who get caught up with winning, having to come in first place, having to, you know, I have so many young kids that I see. I just saw a 9-year-old boy, perfect example. And I'll get your thoughts and we'll go to our first break here. 9-year-old boy a couple weeks ago came into my office with his parents. The mom called me up and wanted to bring her son in. She goes, because he doesn't want to play baseball anymore. Why not? Well, because the coach won't listen to him. Well, they came in, we talked about it. He wanted to play catcher. He's on a premier team, not a rec team. If you don't understand youth sports, there's recreational sports, then the next level's premier and competitive. He was on a premier team and wanted to play catcher. The coach had told him, you're going to get to play catcher. Well, he hadn't played. And so, well, I think you need to ask the coach, can I catch? So what happened was after our meeting, the mom called me this week to fill me in. The young man asked the coach if he could catch. The coach said, sure, you're going to catch the next game. What do you think happened in the next game, Danny?
I hope he got to catch.
No, didn't catch at all. And the parents were having issues with the way he coached anyway. And the young man was so distraught, they left the team and went back to a rec team, which gladly accepted him and said he could catch all he wanted. And they, you know, I'm not for quitting teams. I don't advocate that. But this coach had told him 2 or 3 times things he didn't follow through on. He's 9. what's the message the 9-year-old's getting from that coach? You know, you're not good enough. And then what happens? His self-confidence goes down. Everything falls apart. The parents were strong enough to say, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. I'm not an advocate for quitting, but I think when you have a coach who doesn't follow through with what he or she says, I think they did the right thing. Let me get your thoughts on that, and we'll go to our first break here.
Well, I think, too, from a parent with young kids, there's a difference between quitting because the situation's not working and the circumstances surrounding it, and quitting because you don't want to work hard.
Exactly.
And that I think is the question right there. And I just want to shout out to the parents and be a hype mom to the mom, because the fact that she sought resources through you to, get her son the help, and to let him know and to hear different opinions and to hear from different adults to help him work through that situation. Because when I was growing up, you asked me if I played gymnastics. No, it's so funny that or if I did gymnastics. No, I was not a star athlete. And it's funny that I've had this career in sports, because I'm a 5-hour marathoner. So if you know anything about marathons, I would qualify for Boston Marathon when I turned 80 with my time. But I wasn't this athletic youth athlete right there. But at that time, I didn't know any friends or kids my age who were seeing a sports psychologist. I don't even think that was a thing. But with
it didn't exist.
No, it didn't. And I mean, probably at the professional or the college athlete, but your problems and our struggles are the same as whether you are Travis Kelce or Patrick Mahomes or, that 9-year-old, that feeling of disappointment, working through it, not being heard, not being seen. So shout out to Mom.
Yeah, I was really, when she called me this week and told me that, she actually was getting tears as she was talking to me. She was crying a little bit. She said, Dr. Jacobs, thank you so much, because my son said I wouldn't have talked to the coach if Dr. Jacobs hadn't asked me to do that. And for a 9-year-old, I thought that was pretty cool that he had the guts to go up to his coach and ask if he could play. And then when he didn't let him do it, he said, I don't really want to be here anymore. And I think they did the right thing. All right. Our phone number here is 913-381-810. If you have a question or comment, we'd love to hear from you. I'm sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs, joined by Danni Wysocki. We're on the Leader in Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We actually do it. Ford Motor Company has awarded us with the President's Award 23 times. This is the top honor that they give their Ford dealers for customer satisfaction in sales and in service. So if you're in the market for a new Ford, come see us at Lewisburg Ford. You can reach us at 816-444-2300 or on the web at lewisburgford.com.
Saving money on everything you need at Menards. Your roof is the first line of defense against the elements, and it enhances the appearance of your home's exterior. Owens Corning shingles offer ultimate protection and impressive curb appeal. Choose from 26 colors of Owens Corning Duration shingles and transform your home today. Shop our selection of roofing products on Menards.com. Plus, check out our weekly flyer and find plenty of great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
Win big during race weekend at Hollywood Casino and Kansas Speedway. Show your race ticket to Player Services and receive $10 pin cash. Win your share of $25,000 pin slot play Friday with a night of 101 winners. Saturday is a full day of winners. And don't miss the Advent Health 400 even or odd drawing on Sunday. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
Good morning, everybody. I am sports psychologist Dr. Andrew Jacobs. This is the Sports Psychology Hour, and joining me this morning is Danni Wysocki, sports aficionado from the Michigan area. She teaches at the University of Michigan. She knows sports probably better than most people I know because she's been involved with it from so many different angles, and she's going to be joining me once a month for the next 3 months as we start our video podcast, our streaming here. And hope if you enjoy the show, tell people about it. Our phone number is 913-381-810 if you have a question. So, Danni, I co-wrote this book called Just Let Him Play, Guiding Parents, Coaches, and Athletes Through Youth Sports. And my co-authors were Pete Malone, who coached the Kansas City Blazers swim team for 40 years. He had a number of Olympians. Jeff Montgomery, the Kansas City Royals all-time saves leader. Both great people. I've known them both forever. My fourth chapter is called Embracing Failure Can Lead to Fun. Okay? Why do you think I wrote that chapter? Why did we write that chapter? Why did I think that chapter is important?
It's so funny because now I have questions for you. I know that I'm your guest, but with young kids, I have questions for you. And what sport, if you could pick one sport, what would you tell young parents to have them to build that mental resiliency? From my perspective, so I have two daughters, and they're in dance. They love dance. They like wearing they're very girly. They like wearing their tutus and their leotard. Their friends are there. They like the music and having fun. My husband.
Time out. You just said having fun. That's the key. That's the key.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And they do. And it's funny because my husband and myself, husband loves soccer. He's Venezuelan, so we would love them to get them to play t-ball. And they're still young. I asked them, like, do you guys want to sign up for t-ball? My daughter started crying when I told her, like, oh, let's sign up for t-ball. Now, probably because when we have gone and seen her cousin's games, t-ball games, it rains. So I get it. They don't want to play in the rain, but soccer. And they're, like I said, when they get that so many times, and I noticed that working in sports media, that you didn't really start to see kids be a fan of the team until they were that mid-elementary school, that first, second, third grade. That's when the excitement of following the team and the concepts around. But it was an Olympic year. Again, my very girly girls saw figure skaters with sequins and tutus and all that. So they wanted to get ice skating. And while I love the confidence and the social and having fun at dance, ice skating is something where they have had to fall down and have to get back up. And my 4-year-old we've seen this growth in her and this maturity and this confidence that I told my husband, I was like, I really think that it's from ice skating because she's had to learn how to fail, but she's having confidence and she's having fun with it.
Well, let me jump in on a couple things here, and then we're going to go to the phones. We also have a caller by the name of Nick Lowry who just called up, who pretty famous guy I know. We'll get him on the air in a minute. Youth sports should be about two things: having fun, first of all, and learning how to handle success and failure from a positive perspective. The percentage of kids who drop out of sports by 11 and 12 is like 70 to 80%. Now, part of that's because they'll start to specialize in one sport. They'll quit other sports. But a lot of it's because the pressures, the demands of playing a sport for 7-8 years, not fun anymore. It's not fun. Okay? Because, let me ask this question, Danny. When's the last time you drove past a park or an elementary school and saw a bunch of kids out there playing without parents telling them what to do?
There's always a quote that stays with me when it comes to parenting. And I can't give my kids too much independence right now, but it's staying with me that as parents, we are more concerned about the dangers in
Right.
IRL in real life than we are online. And you see iPad kids, you see this kids being on social media at a young age, way before they're even from the company's quote unquote allowed to be. And that's sort of that autonomy. And it's important to give that with playing in a park, pickup games, going out there meeting with friends, which is so which is something that I want to be presence of mind,
Right.
as my kids grow up.
I mean, the key word in our title here is play. Okay. And one of the concerns I have, I mean, yeah, the safety issues are there. You don't want a bunch of 5-year-olds out at the playground playing without parental supervision. But what I'm concerned about for kids' sports today is that kids don't have the opportunity to create on their own. They're constantly being told what to do. Here's the drill we're going to have. Here's the way we're going to pass the ball, dribble the ball, shoot the ball, throw the ball. They're not given the chance to just go out and play and have fun and do it on their own. And the safety reasons you mentioned, they're valid as heck. But from the perspective of growth and development, I think a lot of kids lose that perspective about creativity, because instead of giving the opportunity to do it on their own, they're told what to do. I mean, I know, and like I said, to about 5th or 6th grade, my buddies and I would go up to Mohawk Grade School up the street. We play 500. We play football. We play basketball on my driveway because I have the wraparound driveway. And I remember one day in 5th grade, my friend Bob Swift, who ended up kicking at the University of Kansas, we were playing 500, and he batted, and the bat threw the bat, hit my nose, busted my nose. I had to run home. My dad went, put it back in place. As the doctor came back up, played some more. And no, we were just playing. But now everything's instructed, everything's controlled. And so I think creativity for kids is not as strong as it used to be. And I think that's a problem.
There's a big push within parenting and also through teachers at the school level, at the young level, for free play. And the importance of free play for brain stimulation and learning and the effects of it. And I think that needs to be applied to youth sports as well, too. That when you talk about for fostering creativity and remembering how free play is. Doc, there's a funny thing. Last year, the buzzword was 90s mom summer, where you wanted to be like, okay, get that energy from when it was back in the 90s. But now the term is, and we're still waiting for spring in Michigan. I don't know how it is down in Kansas City.
We've in the last week we've had summer, winter, fall, and spring. It's been everything.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we have seen that same. But now the term is sandlot summer. That, hey, you want a sandlot summer? Those pickup games at your local community baseball field. That's like, going through and just having fun. Maybe getting a little even red dye 40 popsicles in there. But the sandlot summer, I am here for it.
Well, let's go to the phones, Danny. Let's talk to my friend Nick Lowry. Nick, good morning, buddy. How you doing?
Doing great.
Hey, thanks for
you two together.
Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, you guys are a great combination.
Well, I appreciate that. Listen, next week I've got your book here, Naked and Alone with 80,000 people. You have a big event going on here in Kansas City next week, a roast for you, and that was put on by Christian Okoye, who was on my show last week. Tell us about this book for a second, and what are your thoughts about kids sports? I know you're one of the greatest field goal kickers to ever play. You don't have any kids, but you've got opinions on this. Tell us about the book for a second, then talk about kids sports for a moment.
Well, I've worked with kids now for a long time. And, before we go to that, I just want to make a comment about what you were just talking about, which is helicopter parents and, everybody having to be given instruction. So my question to you is it that much more dangerous today for kids? Or is it simply that everybody has become so paranoid of the horrendous stories that do exist, but also perhaps and probably exaggerated in the sense of the day-to-day moments that are really not so dangerous, where they could have an opportunity to create their own system of rules and problem solve. You know, with creativity comes the ability to adapt and solve problems, all sorts of tiny little problems in life to the bigger ones. And those skill sets are atrophied completely. So kids today just don't seem to be able to adapt. So what is the percentage, you know, in your view, both of you, that makes it so necessary in parents' eyes to protect their kids? Is it really that much more dangerous today?
Well, let Danni, since she's a mother of two young girls, let me have her start with that.
Nick, I wrote it down. Maybe the typing picked up on my microphone right now, but I wrote it down because it really inspired me that creativity to adapt helps you solve problems. And, you know, in the moment, it's hard because I always tell my kids, it's my job to keep you safe. That's my number one job. But as a reminder that saying, hey, in real life, your dangers that you're going to face as a parent are more online than what you have within the real world. And being aware of who your kids are around and putting them in a safe environment and making sure that they advocate for themselves, those are all tools that you want to make sure that you're setting your kids up for success. But yes, that reminder of saying like, hey, your dangers are also behind the screen and online that you need to be aware of from a parent.
You know, Nick, you were cut 11 times by 8 teams before the Kansas City Chiefs signed you in 1980, and you went on to have an incredible career through 1996. You and I worked together the last, 12, 13 years. And you know what failure is. And you were, you know, I think the closer in baseball and the field goal kicker in football are the two most pressure-packed individual positions in sports. Because you have to come out there in your situation, come out there with everybody watching to make a kick. And if you miss it, you're this awful person. And how do you handle that? And it's like the closer in baseball. If he gives up the home run, Tom Gordon, many people, everybody knows, worked with me his whole career. He had the major league record, 54 saves in a row. When you blew a save,
Wow.
blew a save with the Philadelphia Phillies, he got booed off the field after he had like 20 in a row. How you handle failure is so important. You learned how to handle it or you wouldn't have made it. But what would you say to kids, like to Danni's young daughters or to anybody else who's listening, young kids, about failure? How do you learn from that? Because to me, that's the greatest lesson in sports, is when you fail, how you stand back up.
I would say, first of all, it's the way it's set up, the way it is articulated. It's, you know, it's failure as opposed to it's on the continuum of a funny thing with 4 letters called life. It's life. Life is absolutely all about unpredictable adversity in a million different colors and intensities. And so you have to go through life to be alive. You have to, whether it's, you know, that you can't find your toothpaste when you're brushing your teeth in the morning, whether it's you're about to be out of gas and you're stuck in traffic, or, you know, all these tiny things that you have to adapt to and figure out, what do I do? And part of it is something that I think you and I did, which is important for young athletes, is to spend a little bit of time, I don't know if I'd call it planning, but it is anticipating. In other words, we would say at the beginning of the week, what's going on this week? Before the game on Sunday, and it's Wednesday, what other things could be a distraction, could be things that take away your focus, that take away your capacity to be present. And by the way, that's another issue that comes with the phone, Danni. I mean, right? It's the ability or inability to be present because there could be another text or somebody could be commenting about me. And so you're exchanging being present, being focused, just like the kicker before the ball snapped, you better be ready. I created what I would articulate as my office, and nobody comes into that office but me. And so I feel safe and focused. So many kids today don't have their own personal, if you will, office, the ability to say, I can be present and bring what I need right now to the moment because, there could be another more stimulating thing coming online or on my phone.
Danny, you've got a question for Nick. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nick, it's funny. Just a funny observation that I want to point out is your accomplishments speak to yourself. Every Chiefs Hall of Fame, all of your accolades. But Robbie Gould is a friend, and he went through a similar experience as well with you. We're being cut. Stories. So many accomplished kickers have to overcome that adversity. And the irony is what an important position a kicker is coming down. How many games did we watch as fans and on NFL Sundays or in college where the game comes down to the kicker? That's why essentially that kickers are built for this. Kickers are built for this adversity and overcoming failures, not only in that moment on the field, but showing, improving time and time again to their skill set and their fighting for that roster spot. In the irony of it, with talking about their challenges. But my question that I had for you is that over the course of my career, I've worked with a lot of professional athletes who then have very accomplished athletic kids. And, I always remember Kendall Gill, his son, Phoenix now plays at the college level. He had said, my son's not playing AAU. Similarly, Olin Kreutz, a former Chicago Bear player as well, his son played for University of Illinois. And I remember when he was in high school and he really wanted his son to wrestle. Kyle Long also had said, I think the best is for kids, the best athletes to play multiple sports. How do you counteract that where there is that push to specialize at such a young age, to pick one sport to focus on when the athletes themselves or the former athletes themselves are telling their own kids saying, hey, no, I want them to be multifaceted. I want them to play a different sport every season.
I want Nick to comment, and then I want to jump in because I've got a very strong opinion on that. Nick, go ahead first.
Well, I was listening on the NFL channel yesterday to a very high potential draft pick from Navy, who is so proud that he played 4 sports in high school. I played 4 sports in high school. And by the way, just small correction, I wasn't cut 11 times. I was rejected and cut. I had my share of both, rejected and tryouts, but certainly each of those was a process in learning to come back and realize it's not the end of the world. I'm still here. And is it going to take a while to get used to this bizarre, unbelievably intense 1.27 seconds with 11 huge people running at me wanting to eat me, paid millions of dollars? It's going to take a while. Those goalposts look like tweezers. It takes a while to get used to that and be with the right situation too, with a coach and a special teams coach that takes the time to let you get ready, the way Marv Levy did when he said, Jan Stenerud, you're one of the greatest kickers, the greatest kicker of all time. But this guy, we think, is better. It's funny, even today in Kansas City, a lot of people, including our mutual friend, Harrison Butker, thought I followed Jan. No, I didn't. I had to compete against him head to head and get it done. So getting back to the question, multiple sports is part of that adaptiveness. You've got multiple coaches, you've got multiple situations, and you're also learning, hopefully, if you're playing sports like basketball, which are more above, right, above your waist and your hand-to-eye coordination. The best example being Stephen Curry. OMG, what has he shown us by taking those 500 shots every single day, that he's been able to expand the average shot from 15 feet to 30 feet. And then soccer. I played soccer in England when England won the World Cup. And I was playing 10 hours a day. I mean, the ball was connected to my toe. I felt like that kinesthetic awareness. So that taught me how to use all of my body in a much more comprehensive way. And who knows, beyond words, how that's teaching your brain to adapt and search for a solution that's more creative and more unpredictable and probably better. So there's my answer.
Well, and here's where I'm going to jump in, and I agree with what you're saying. I was the first sports psychologist at the University of Kansas, and I worked with the basketball team when Larry Brown was the coach. And one time I was sitting talking with Coach Brown, and we were talking about kids. And he said, you know what, Andy? I think kids should play an individual sport. This is 1983, by the way, so 43 years ago. I think kids should play an individual sport and a team sport. Because when an individual sport, you learn about self-confidence and how you can look at yourself, but you're in a team sport, you learn about how you share. And kids need to do both. And to validate that, Roger Federer and Alex Morgan, I'll use them as examples. Then, Nick, we're going to have to let you go here in 1 second. But Alex Morgan and Roger Federer, we all know how successful both of them were in their sports, in tennis and soccer. They both played multiple sports until they were like 14. Then they started to specialize. It's important, I think, to be involved in a lot of activities. Not just sports, but the arts, debate, reading, things like that. Become multifaceted, multi-talented. And I think that will make you a better person in the end. Nick, listen, thanks for calling. Next week, you'll be on the show with me. You co-wrote this book, or you didn't co-wrote it. You wrote this book, Naked and Afraid, in front of 80,000 people. We're going to talk about it.
It's not Naked and Afraid. It's not Naked and
Alone.
It's Naked and Alone. And you can get it on Amazon. Yes. And it's about how you overcome. It's about persistence, but then it's also about how you use your success to help others find their own direction and their own purpose in life.
Yeah, not naked and afraid, but there is fear kicking out there at times. Listen, my friend, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. Thanks for calling.
All right, Danny, good to meet you.
Yes, Nick, you were wonderful. And then another line that I wrote down that just really resonated with me is when you said, "I'm still here." I'm still here, and I think in the sports world as a parent, and then also mental health, which we're talking about today, is such an important reminder and a mantra that we can all identify with.
All right, take care, buddy.
Robbie Gold, much respect. Great kicker.
Take care, Dominic. I'll talk to you.
Thanks,
buddy.
Sir.
Great call. Danny, we've got a few minutes left here. This is our first show doing this together. And we got about 3 minutes left. Would you please sum up from your perspective why I wanted us to do this and why this is important to talk about and why we need to keep doing this type of show?
Well, the last thing, and I mean, knowing TV, I know that time is of the essence, but I know that my last caveat that maybe we can talk about next time when I'm on is when you said, hey, kids can talk about, it's important for kids to be multifaceted. It's important for them to play multiple sports. But hey, elephant in the room here, God, it's expensive. It's expensive. So, that needs to be addressed as a parent. And I think that's why you do see specialization, or you do see one sport.
Great point.
One sport, because, and why do we want to do this? Why do we want to talk? And why do we have such engaging conversations? One, as a young parent, as a woman, though I feel like those are men and women, it is more congruent and important thought. But also, I'll say it again, you come from advocacy for the psychology side. Me, I'm worried about, that driving revenue. I'm coming at from a sports marketing and a sports business side.
Well, and that's why I think the two of us working together is going to be really good, because I love your perspective. I love the fact that you're coming from a woman's perspective as well, because I don't come from that perspective. I come from where I come from. And the key thing about kids sports, it's not just sports, it's the arts, it's debate, it's music, whatever. It's about growth and learning. And yeah, the financial part, we're going to get into this next time, the financial part, because that is such a huge thing now. And private lessons, traveling teams, all this stuff, it gets out of hand. And that's why, to me, it should all be about fun, because, and you know, what Nick said before is so important. It's just about fun. Danny Wysocki, I want you to, cannot thank you enough for joining me today. If people would like to reach you, Danny, how can they get a hold of you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Danny Wysocki, and then I'm on Twitter too, as well at Danny Wysocki. I would love to connect with you.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for being on with me today. We're going to do this next month. We're going to do it a couple more times, see how it goes. And we'd like to get feedback from you. If you like the show, give us some feedback. You can reach me several ways. My email is drj@winnersunlimited.com. My office phone number is 816-561-5556. Love to hear from you, get thoughts. If you've got a topic you'd like us to bring up on this show, Danny and me to talk about, we'd love to hear from you on that. And Danny, I want to say this. Thank you for doing this with me today. You were awesome, and I can't wait to do it again.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks, Doc.
All right. Stay safe. I'll be back here next week. Nick Lauer will be my guest. We're going to talk about his book, Naked and Alone, with 80,000 people. Take care. We're on the leader in sports, Sports Radio 810 WHB.
At Aristocrat Motors, come get your new car paired with a great experience.